that's the reason why we've come here today, right? It's without further ado that I introduce Corinne Goodwin.
Yeah.
Someone who navigates every space with grace, compassion, and understanding. Someone who celebrates alongside you. Someone who gives you space to lament if you need to. And someone who's a friend and an advocate for so many. It doesn't say that in her bio, but I think it's so important to highlight these qualities that you can't teach anybody. They're just intrinsic to who they are. And so, Corinne, I just want to thank you for being here, for spending your time and your wisdom and sharing that with us today. And so I welcome you to be with us and to do this work alongside us. Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you. No one ever says nice things about me. All right, so I have a couple kind of housekeeping things. So my wonderful friend Mel, you are now nominated as timekeeper.
Oh, okay.
All right. And so your job is to let me know when we're hit the 12 o'clock or whatever it is hour. When a half hour goes by, right? You're going to give me the signal, okay? Right? You might need to be a little more assertive than that.
Oh, really?
Okay. And I want to take just a second to recognize one of my volunteers who's in the room, so please give a round of applause for Aoife Ward. Aoife is amazing. So Aoife manages and facilitates 2 of our support groups. She is like the queen of pride, right? So I love her dearly. So, all right. Next thing is this is a strange clicker to me, and so we're gonna it'll be awkward. So my name is Corinne Goodwin. I'm a transgender, proud woman, out and loud and in the community. My pronouns are she or they. It's really a pleasure to see such a big and diverse group here today and to see so many friends. So thank you all for coming. I will also warn you that this is the first time I've given this talk in a year, and so I'm going to screw up. I'm going to do a lot of this, right? Because I don't know what I'm talking about next. So I am Executive Director of Eastern PA Trans Equity Project. Our mission is to empower transgender people while building community and advocating for social justice. We serve 26 counties in the state of Pennsylvania, half of the population of the state of Pennsylvania. So you see everything kind of like from the Delaware River all over to the Susquehanna River, from Maryland up to the New York border, with the exception of Philadelphia. Why don't we serve Philadelphia? Because man, I can't handle that much work. Truth is while there's always room for more services for trans, non-binary people and their family members, there are some services in Philadelphia. But man, when you get out into Pennsylvania, there's a whole lot of nothing. You get up there in Tioga County, it's scary for queer people. So our goal really is to try to serve the folks in the rural areas of the state, although I'm not sure I call Montgomery County or the Lehigh Valley rural in the true sense of the word, but we'll do it for today. But yeah, that's where we are, and this is kind of what we do. So we really kind of have 4 swim lanes of what we do. First is supportive services and mentoring. So we run 7 different support groups for transgender people and the people who care for them, as well as some online committees, communities. We do a lot of work around legal name change and mentoring, helping people get through the transition processes. They do that. We do a lot of work around advocacy. So, we kind of talk about Trans Day of Visibility, Transgender Day of Remembrance, and other community-based events. But we just spent a whole day in Harrisburg last week with Braden, and about 100 other folks talking about the Pennsylvania Fairness Act. And we are really, really excited that the Human Relations Commission decided, they finally implemented that regulation. We signed on to one of the letters that I know the DSC did too, to advocate for that. But it's not going far enough. Because the truth is that if a different administration comes in and they decide that they want to implement a new rule that would reverse those rulings, that can happen. But we need to be advocating for the PA Fairness Act, which for 22 years we've been trying to get this thing passed. We finally have a great chance of getting it done. We finally passed the House for the first time in 22 years. The governor has committed to signing it. We got to get a hearing though in the Senate. And so really thankful for all those who came out last week to for our action day on that. But we got to keep the pressure on our legislators, including our senator here, Lisa Boscola from Bethlehem. We also do a lot of educational work, so y'all probably notice my voice is a little rough, so that's what happens in Pride Month. So this is my 6th event this week, and so I'm starting to lose my voice a bit. I apologize for that. But we do work with a lot of work in particular in the medical field, so like with Lehigh Valley Health Network and St. Luke's University Health Network, Einstein. Every year I speak to the UPenn School of Nursing, Geisinger, really trying to improve the quality of care for LGBTQ people and transgender people in particular. But we also work with government and businesses and folks like you. By the way, I'm also a business owner, so I have to make payroll every 2 weeks, so I know what it's like, right? And then, of course, our biggest program really is our empowerment grants and scholarship programs. So within the past year, we've helped over 400 people complete their legal name changing course. And that's a big deal, right? That's a big deal because think about all the places where you have to use your name or maybe show ID. And that includes applying for and getting hired for a job. And it's not unheard of that when a transgender person comes in and maybe they look like a Joe, but their legal name is Joanne, that they get the question, oh, so you're transgender, how are you going to handle bathrooms? Now that's a perfectly illegal question, but believe me, it happens, right? And the number one thing that we hear, especially from younger trans folks, is that I will not apply for a job, I will not get a driver's license, I will not learn how to drive until I get my chosen name affirmed in law. And that can cost thousands of dollars. So we're really glad to be able to help people do that. But we also do rent assistance. I just paid somebody's rent this morning from up in Wayne County, right? Food assistance. We also do college scholarships. So we're really glad this year we were able to provide 6 college scholarships, including to one person from Lehigh this year, right? As well as another person for Northampton County Community College. So we're really glad to be able to do that. We also sponsor youth to go to summer camp. So lots of really important things that we try to do. That's enough of a sales pitch. Give us money. Buy raffle tickets, otherwise I get the booze. So today we're going to talk really about trans, non-binary people, LGBTQ people in the workplace. And I'm going to take the talk and we're really going to kind of go in a couple of directions. But the first thing that I want you to do is just take a second, right? And if you have a pen and a paper, I want you to write it down. If not, it's okay just to keep it in your head. But I want you to write down or think about one thing, just one thing that you know about LGBTQ people in the workplace. Good, bad, different, doesn't matter. But one thing that you know about queer folks who are working in the workplace. Okay? So let's start off a little bit just kind of talking about who are LGBTQ plus people, right? Well, we run support groups. We have 750 people a year who come to our support groups, and they are doctors and lawyers and business owners, politicians, mechanics, teachers. One of my good friends is the highest ranking out person in the U.S. military. He's literally a rocket scientist. He designs satellites that are going to kill us all someday, right? Students and retirees, but probably the most important thing to remember is that we're all moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandparents. We certainly were somebody's kid at one point in time, right? What do we like to do? Well, we love our pets. They don't always love us back. So I have a cat named April who hates me, but adores my wife, right? But I'm the one who feeds the cat, takes care of the litter box, but I get no payback, right? I love to cook because it's like my therapy, right? I sing karaoke really badly, although if I drink enough, I think I sing pretty well. And I like to ride my bicycle. I don't get to do it enough because this summer, 19 Pride festivals. I mean, it's crazy enough to do that. Right? I love music, although I can't play a note, right? I love to travel. We're going to San Francisco this fall. My wife's never been, right? I go yeah, I've been there a lot. I don't need to go back, but we're going. right? Bottom line is that we're just like everybody else, right? We are fully formed individuals. Certainly the word trans, for me, is just another adjective, right? You know, I'm a business owner, I'm a taxpayer. I kind of think I ought to get what I pay for as a taxpayer, which is like equality, right? So what do we want? We want to live, we want to learn, get a great education so we can get a great job, so we can buy a lot of stuff. Because this is America, and that's what we do, right? I was just talking to folks out in the lobby there that, you know, I have this like 3,000 square foot house that's like full of crap. And I gotta get rid, I spent all my whole life, 63 years accumulating crap, and now I gotta get rid of it all. Because my kid lives in a 300 square foot apartment in Brooklyn, and he didn't want any of my crap, right? But you know, we wanna worship, we wanna be healthy, we wanna be safe, we wanna be respected, the same things that everybody else wants, right? We also wanna get great jobs, and we wanna be productive members of our communities. Here's an important question to ask yourself. How is it that only 67% of the people in the United States of America say they know or have even met a person who is LGBTQ+? And only 32 say that they have ever met or know a person with transgender experience. And I don't get that, because if we look just here in the Lehigh Valley, there are 500,000 Pennsylvanians who identify as LGBTQ+. By the way, that number is probably an undercount of like 50%. Because where this survey came from the Williams Institute at UCLA, right? And what they did is they asked a lot of boomers. Raise your hand if you're queer, right? And yeah, boomers don't do that. A lot of millennials don't even do that. Right? But that number is probably an undercount. It's probably more like 1 million queer people in the state of Pennsylvania, right? You know, and in the Lehigh Valley, there's like 30,000 queer people, maybe as many as 60,000. How can you say you've never met one? There's only like 100,000 people here, right? We're taking over, right? We make up 5% of the workforce, again, right? So that means 20,000 queer people working in the Lehigh Valley here, and then same-sex households in the Lehigh Valley. Again, these numbers are probably an underreporting, probably pretty significant, but at least 2,200 here in the Lehigh Valley. How is it possible that people go like, oh, I've never met somebody who's queer? Especially when like I'm on TV all the time. So this is a really important slide. So silent generation, so these are the people that fought in World War II, right? The big one. Only about 2% of people in the silent generation will publicly state that they're queer. But look at the numbers for millennials and Gen Z, right? So millennials, about 12% will raise their hand and publicly state that they're an LGBTQ+ person. And for Gen Z, so these are the people who are coming into your workforce, well in excess of 20%. Just shy of 20%. And these numbers are going up kind of year over year, we're seeing it. If you don't have a business that actively serves LGBTQ people, if you don't have a business that actively tries to recruit and support LGBTQ people, your business is going to be in trouble. That's the bottom line. You can't afford to ignore 20% of the market. You just can't, right? I own my own business, I own my own consulting firm. Prior to that, I was a senior executive in the telecommunications industry and in the retail industry. And you know, the US market is huge, and you can't afford to ignore a fifth of it. You just can't, okay? Some more things about queer folks, right? So 52% of same-gender couples who are married in Pennsylvania versus 53%. You know what that means? There's a whole lot of money to be made in the gay marriage business, right? And you want to be able to make cakes for people who are getting married, right? 27%, that's the percentage of LGBTQ adults who are raising children in the state of Pennsylvania, versus 40% for people who aren't queer, right? You know what that means? We ain't having kids, so we got money to spend, right? My kid's 35 years old, lives in Brooklyn, likes to think he's independent. I'm still paying his cell phone bill. Right? There are times when I pay his rent, right? When you have kids, your money doesn't go to stuff for you. It goes to stuff for other people, right? So disposable income is a really important thing to think about, right? So same-sex households generally have 23% more disposable income than other households. $2,045 more a year is what we spend on goods, right? So my friend Anne Marie, who runs a shop here, AM Lux, right? Yeah, that's a bunch of dresses. Okay, you just got to get the right size.
She's right.
And by the way, we're twice as likely to buy from companies that we trust. So when we have more money to spend, right, and we're more loyal, this is a market that you want to attack. 50% of us have made a purchasing decision based on seeing an ad that was inclusive of LGBTQ people. By the way, that's not a rainbow logo, right? Rainbow logos are just totally performative, And I know that, we've got them here, and I know that Working Dog, y'all are wonderful allies, but we're looking for it year round, right? So when I'm watching TV or reading a newspaper, or I'm like one of the 5 people that still actually gets a paper newspaper, right? Or a magazine, I look at those ads, and if I see a same-sex couple in there, I make a note. We're watching all the time. 45% of all consumers under 34 would do repeat business with an LGBTQ-friendly company. And 70% of all consumers surveyed said that whether or not a brand is perceived as LGBTQ friendly has directly affected their buying decisions. So we're watching. And we're watching all year long. The market is $1.4 trillion, right? And the work that we do, LGBTQ-owned small businesses like the one that I own, we contribute $1.7 trillion to the overall economy in the United States of America. So growing your presence with LGBTQ people makes sense. And I know that like Janine mentioned it actually in her introduction there, right? There are businesses out there right now that are really afraid to support LGBTQ communities, right? Because they saw what happened to Bud Light. Well, it's all about knowing your market, right? It's really all about knowing your market, and it's about not doing stupid stuff, right? So just remember that, I'm watching Target, and I'm watching AM Lux, and I'm watching Lehigh University, and I'm watching all of your businesses every single day. And I make buying decisions based on that. And I'm a woman with disposable income. Because sooner or later I'm going to cut my kid off. All right. So, some actions that you can take as a business owner to attract and serve LGBTQ customers, right? So, number 1, advertise specifically in LGBTQ-owned media. This is the very last issue of the Gay Journal. Right? My good friend Steven is the publisher. I was over at his home the other day picking up my 1,000 copies of this that I distribute, I think, every month, right, or every quarter. And he has made the decision to fold this business because he is struggling to get advertisers. Yeah, that's sad, right? And by the way, I don't think it's ever been a real money maker for Steven, right? He does it really out of the goodness of his heart. But he deserves to at least break even. I've been writing for this for 8 years, and it's probably half the size of what it used to be because of the fact that he can't afford to print those pages. Don't just advertise, though, in LGBTQ publications, advertise in mainstream media, right? And I want to see same-sex couples, I want to see transgender people in those advertisements. Sponsor events like this, sponsor our organization, sponsor what the Bradbury Sullivan Center does, right? Because what we do costs money. Our organization is a 100% volunteer organization. almost every dollar that comes in goes right back out in the form of grants that support LGBTQ, transgender people, and the people who love them. The rent payment that I paid today was to the mom of a trans kid, plus 2 other kids, and they would have been out on the street if I hadn't paid their rent. Market to us year-round. So Pride Month's over, thank God. Right? Because like 19 Pride festivals and like, another dozen speaking engagements, and I am spent. Right? I am done. But, that rainbow logo shouldn't be around just in June. It should be around year-round. Right? You should be supporting publications like the Gay Journal year-round. You should be advertising to queer people year-round. Don't be performative, right? Make sure that you show up. So here's a perfect example. So Citibank has a program called True Name, right? So if you're a person with transgender experience and you're like most transgender people, 68% of all transgender people do not have a legal name change, do not have identification that matches their gender presentation or gender identity, but Citibank will allow you to get a credit card in your chosen name. So I could walk in, by the way, this is like the second time this month I've worn a dress. Like I never wear a dress again, right? But I could walk in looking like this, and I wouldn't have to provide that credit card that would have my dead name on it. And that's really important, because I have a friend right here in Allentown, beautiful young trans woman, walked into a bar to meet some friends, ordered a drink, bartender says, "Let me see your ID." Hand over the ID, and the bartender says, just loud enough for everybody to hear, "Oh, you're one of those transgenders." And she was assaulted as she left the bar. Okay? So there's an example of something that really is making a difference, not just in terms of Citibank's ability to make money, but they're saving people's lives, right? Train your team. We're going to kind of make a dent in that today, right? And then, be consistent and confident, don't back down. Because we are watching and we're 20% of the market. You don't want to give that up, okay? And this is really important, right? It's important to remember that we're probably already buying from you, even though you're not marketing to us. And so when we see you do what Target did and take down displays, or like some Starbucks have done and take down those displays, we are watching. And now, I ain't gonna go to Starbucks. Right? Bye, Felicia. Okay, so now let's look at the other side of the coin. All right? We're gonna talk about employees. Okay? So here's some statistics. So 46% of LGBTQ plus workers have experienced unfair treatment on the job. 34% have left a job due to treatment by their employer, and 57% have reported unfair treatment from their employers. If you want to target the LGBTQ market and make money off them, we want to see people like us working for you. 47% of us have experienced harassment on the job. 31% of us have been harassed on the job just within the last year. And 17% of us who just reside in Pennsylvania have reported being fired. So I'm a business consultant, that's my day job. And as an independent business owner, I eat what I kill. I have to go out and find new business. And when I came out to my clients, luckily most of them stuck with me. But one of my largest clients, somebody that I had a 5-year business relationship, man, they ghosted me. They not only ghosted me, but they didn't pay me $10,000 that they owed me. Unfortunately, they're based in Jamaica, and the lawyer's fees would cost more than the 10 grand, right? But here's the bottom line: these things happen. 35% of us feel that we can't talk about our opinions or our lifestyle, our families in the workplace. We don't feel comfortable disclosing our LGBTQ status, to our employers. So just think about, do you have a photo of your spouse or your kids on your desk? Well, a lot of LGBTQ plus people don't. Something so simple and so human that we don't do that. And then 29% of us feel that this impacts our productivity. So here's what I'll tell you as somebody who used to have about 5,000 people working for me at any given day. Work is about work, right? I am paying you good money for work. And I expect you to hit your targets, to achieve your goals, and to take care of my customers. I will not put up with unproductive behavior. But I have an obligation to give you an environment where you can be productive. By the way, that's the law. That's the law. 53% of transgender people, so folks like me, gorgeous and mature yet somehow alluring, right? 53% of us view our gender identity as a barrier to employment. 38% of us in Pennsylvania feel that we have needed to seek new employment. And then LGBTQ plus women in particular, sorry I have to keep looking at these slides because, like I said, it's been a year. But are not in supervisory positions, right? So we tend to kind of go into those entry-level jobs with baristas, and we're baristas for life, right? That's no fun. Almost $11,000. That's what it costs on average to replace a team member in the state of Pennsylvania. So if I back up, if 40% of us are seeking other employment because of the work environment, congratulations, you just cost yourself 11 grand. And it takes time to make that money back. And that's just the cost for kind of recruiting and onboarding, right? It doesn't really count the cost of ramping up, right? So we kind of think about our sunk cost, right? Which is, the cost of hiring and recruiting, the cost of onboarding, the initial cost of training. That's what this 11,000 is. But it doesn't count the lost productivity for the next 6 months with somebody who isn't working to capacity. So that number will go up even more. So, actions, right? So this is all of you leading up to. Am I good on time?
1 o'clock.
Perfect.
You got 5 minutes.
God, like a machine. So number one, right? Have gender inclusive benefits, right? LGBTQ inclusive benefits. So the number one thing that we're looking at after the money is what do the benefits look like, right? So do you have domestic partner benefits? Do you have trans inclusive health care? I just had somebody reach out to me yesterday who was looking for surgery and their insurance declined it, right? Even though it's illegal, right? We still have all these old policies hanging out there, that maybe that employer never had a transgender employee before, right? So they didn't update their policy. So, we have to reach out to that employer and do some training with them, right? Reproductive health care. So, not everybody has a baby the old-fashioned way. Sometimes we adopt, right? Sometimes we use IVF. Do your insurance benefits cover that, right? HIV care. And then you want to market it, right? We're 20% of the market out there for potential employees. So talk about it. Talk about it on your LinkedIn profile. Number 2, have a written non-discrimination policy, right? It should cover sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. By the way, I can have a female gender identity, but I could have a male expression. I did that for 50 years, right? The good news is Land Illegal, Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund, they actually have model policies, so you're not starting from scratch. Or organizations like ours or like the Bradbury Sullivan Center, we will help you craft that policy, or we'll review your policy and tell you where the holes are, right? That's one of the things we did with United Way a few years ago, right? So I don't know where Debbie is, but somewhere, right? There she is, right? But putting words on paper isn't enough, right? We also have to model that inclusive behavior, right? So that means, when you're in the meeting, you're doing the right things, and you're talking about it. Number 3, documents and systems. So that starts with something as simple as your job application. Do you have a place on job application for chosen name? Right? And by the way, that's all it should say. It isn't chosen name, oh, and legal name too. Because when you do that, you're outing me as a queer person, right? So it should just say chosen name, right? And that means all your personnel systems, your email systems. So I have a good friend, she works for a top 50 company in the United States of America. She got her legal name change done, went to HR, said, hey, look at me, I got a name change done. And they put it in their database and nothing updated. Her email address still was her old email address. They finally, she worked that out. They have 4 different email systems, right? Because it's a multinational company. So actually what happens is when she sends an email to, I don't know, France, it goes into like this big bucket and then it gets translated into French somehow, right? Because I don't know, Google Translate. And then, but it came up with her dead name, right? So when you update your personnel records, does it update insurance? Right, so all of these things, they all interlock and work together. Insurance documents, so number 1, and this is just a big thing of mine. I remember when we were working with LVHM in St. Luke's on updating their EMR, and we're going like, hey, listen, you need to put chosen name on your electronic medical records. And I was trying to go like, chosen name first, legal name second. They go like, oh no, we can't do that. Can't do it because insurance won't do it. But when I was in the hospital on New Year's Day getting my gallbladder out, best New Year's Eve ever, right? And they walk into the room. In the United States, we read from top to bottom, left to right. And so, what's the first thing they see? Legal name. Luckily, I've had mine changed. But if you haven't had your name changed, now they're going to see your dead name, and you're already in a high-stress situation. I know somebody who they were having a heart attack, and they left the ER when they got misgendered. Okay. So chosen name should be listed first, pronouns, and you should have something called insurance gender, right? Because as a transgender woman, I still own a prostate. And the insurance company probably needs to know that for when I get my prostate check every year. Okay? Or if you're a trans guy and you still have a cervix, right? You need to get a pap smear. If you don't have those insurance gender on there, it gets kicked out. So, and probably most important, do you have a plan for when an employee comes out? Whether it's they come out as lesbian or gay or bi or agender or whatever, you need to have a plan, right? And that means it's written on paper somewhere. Number 4, provide training on diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, right? And that training isn't just like for new hires, and it isn't like, oh my God, we're gonna, we gotta do this for some sort of compliance thing. It should happen on an ongoing basis. Training should happen regularly, right? And those topics can include, terminology or implicit bias or how to report something, how to be an ally, right? There's lots of topics, so you don't have to give the same training every year. My wife is a medical practitioner, and she was just doing some training yesterday on our dining room table because since COVID, that's what her office is. And she's going like, oh, I got to do this compliance training again. It's the same one she's done for the last 15 years, right? You're allowed to mix it up a little bit, right? If you need assets, Society for Human Resource Management or other organizations locally here, we can help you out with that. And by the way, you have the absolute right as an employer to mandate training. Training is not optional. Right? Set expectations and take corrective action as needed. So, remember, work is about work. People should be focused on that. And if they're focused on something else, like misgendering me, they're not only not working, they're making me unproductive. Right? So the problem starts to go up geometrically. So people need to be required to treat everybody with respect. Number 6, encourage sharing of names and pronouns in your email address or just in general. And by the way, get rid of the term preferred. My name is not preferred. I chose it for very specific reasons. I've worked with several women named Corinne over the years, and they have all been rock stars. And I chose my name to honor them. Corinne means beautiful. My middle name is Dawn, means beginning. And when I transitioned, it was a beautiful beginning. My name's chosen. Create support, right? So, for larger corporations, you may have an employee resource group, an LGBTQ employee resource group, but what about for smaller employers? Why not work with your chamber and create an employee research program for small business? Sounds like a great thing to do, right? So now we can take what we're doing with the LGBTQ Business Council and really blow it out. Recruit purposely, right? So don't be ignoring 20% of the market, right? And there are LGBTQ-friendly recruiting sites that you can be going after, right? So if you're an employer and you're used to kind of working in the affirmative action world, you know that there are sites out there where you can target specific populations, but you can do that as a small business too, right? And then, of course, make sure that you're reviewing your job postings to make sure that they're appropriately inclusive. Communicate, 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 right? So make sure that your policies are inclusive, and then you need to communicate the policy. So you don't just rewrite the policy and put it in a drawer, you communicate that policy, right? And then, of course, you need to back up those words with actions. Really important, you gotta walk the walk, right? Remember that we are always watching, always watching. Here's a true story. So, in 1991, I was working in the retail business, and I took over a new territory in Buffalo, New York. I had 35 stores that I was managing, and several hundred employees. I'm in my very first meeting with all of my new management team, and somebody kind of says something, listen, if you figured out that I cut jokes, it's just sort of my style, right? Well, somebody talked back to me, and I said the following: well, that's mighty white again. How horrible is that? Now, that's a saying that my father used daily when somebody was being snarky to him. And it was just like a learned behavior. And I'm so thankful to the one team member who came to me and said, dead man, I'm not sure if you know what you did. I immediately apologized to everybody. And I've had regret about that for 30 plus years. We all make mistakes. We just have to learn from them. So that was a day that I didn't walk the walk. And then number 10, just be an active ally. So here's what you need to remember about queer people. When we come out, it is an act of revolution, right? Because when I came out, I was a relatively high-paid business executive, right? In a safe place in the closet. Now, I was pretty frustrated, but it was safe. And then I made the decision to raise my hand and say, please marginalize me. That's different than most other marginalized groups. That decision to become a member of a marginalized community publicly is a different kind of experience, right? So, things to remember. Coming out of the closet is stressful and dangerous at the same time as it's liberating, right? We can literally die when we come out sometimes, right? So when someone comes out to you, it's a big deal. So when they come out, you gotta give me the appropriate respect, and then these are the magic words. Thanks for telling me. I want you to know that it's not going to change anything about the way that I feel about you, and how can I help? And then you just shut up and listen. That's all it takes. Appreciate their trust, thank them for sharing, and then ask if it's confidential. Because coming out doesn't happen all at once. Just because of who I am, when I came out, I built a spreadsheet. Right? I had the list of people that they needed the personal conversation face-to-face, one-on-one. I had the list of people that I'd do a handwritten letter, right? and I have really bad handwriting, right? So they probably still don't know. And then, I had the list that was like the email list, and then I had like the social media list, and then I had that exam list, right? But ask if it's confidential, because it took me, a while to get through that whole list, right? Ask how you can support. And then this one's really important. We have an amazing tool. It's called Google, right? And so if you have questions about the queer experience, go to Google, right? Before you come to me, right? If you do need to come to me, ask permission to ask those questions, all right? Let's just talk about names and pronouns for a minute. So here's Katy Perry and The Rock, who we all know and love because they grew up in Bethlehem, right? And Snoop and Martha. Why do we call The Rock The Rock? Because he wants to be called The Rock. Why do we call Snoop the Snoop? Right? Right? I mean, these were the names that they were born with, or that they were assigned at birth, right? It's no different from me, right? I chose my name for a very specific reason. They did it to make money. I did it for this, right? Same thing with names and pronouns. Remember that, and I understand that neo-pronouns like he's here today, right? They can take a while to wrap your mouth around, but the important thing is that you can learn, right? That's the thing that separates us from the animals, is our ability to learn and adapt, right? And then, if you really want to be an ally, you take action. So this is the stop method. It's super easy, right? So if you see somebody with some inappropriate behavior, you state what that behavior is objectively, you tell them how it makes you feel, then you offer another option, and then you reinforce positive actions, and then you practice if you can. So it might look like this. Hey, Tom, you misgendered Corinne in the meeting just a few minutes ago. By the way, we always do this in private, right? Reprimand in private, praise in public, right? I want you to know that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And if it made me feel uncomfortable, I can't imagine how that made Corinne feel. Maybe a better way is to stop using pronouns altogether. So instead of saying he or she's going to do something, you just say Corinne's going to do something. I bet that'll make us all more productive, don't you think? Takes 30 seconds. Takes no time at all, right? So you put a stop to the bad behavior, and then if you really want to dig in, you follow this process, right? So 6 A's. So first you've got to have an appetite, where you want to learn and you want to grow, and then you're going to use Dr. Google, right? Where you're going to start asking questions and doing your research. Then you're going to start, to build your awareness, right, of the challenges that our community faces, and also all the wonderful things that we do in our community. Then you're going to amplify. So you are going to write to Lisa Boscola today. I will give you the link. Right? And say, please demand a hearing on the Fairness Act. That's what action is. Do something, right? And then, of course, make sure that you're advocating, every day, right? That doesn't mean that you have to have a march, right? We all have our own way of doing it, but it could be writing to your senator. It could be giving money to an organization, right? It could be just telling somebody that you love them, right? But take some action, okay? So last thing I want to leave you with is that in 27 states in this country, including the state of Pennsylvania, there is no legislation that protects LGBTQ people from discrimination in employment or in housing or in education or in public spaces. We need to fix that. And the way you fix it is by remembering that it's not good for business, right? And when you remember that it's not good for your business, and that's how you get paid, you're likely to be more motivated to write to your stinking legislator. And you can do it right now with this cool QR code, right? So you're gonna scan that QR code. It's gonna take you to a website called action.pa-values. And it's going to bring up this website with old white guys, because that's who senators are. You're going to scroll past those photographs, right? And then it's going to ask you for your county, It'll bring up some more photographs, and then it's going to ask you for the town that you live in, and then you're going to enter that in, and it's going to, the first picture you see is going to be who your state senator is, and the email's already written. Already written. All you got to do is put in your name and address. And then you have actually taken action today. Thank you all so much.